Hi. We'd like to thank you for tuning in to the World Boxing Review radio show. My name is Aaron Snowell. They call me the Hall of Fame trainer of champions, that we travel the world for past, present, and future stars. I'm coming to you live from Tampa, Florida. Hey, it's a little chilly, but it's warming up, and we have Mark Irwin, who's going to profile Jack Dempsey today, but he's up in cold Rochester, man. They say that weather's blazing up there. Is that true or not?
That is correct. Yes, yes.
And they say it's blazing cold, and it's going to get colder. It's understanding, but it's that time of year up there for Christmas, and we want to say season's greetings to each and every body. Happy Kwanzaa, happy and Merry Christmas, and all of those good things that go along with celebrating the holidays at this point. We don't want to leave nobody out nor try to spite anyone, but these type of things during this type of year is just amazing for family and stuff. So how you doing, Mark?
I'm doing good. It was my first Christmas in the new house, and I'm coming to you from a different location now, and for the last two shows, and still getting used to it a little. Thanksgiving was kind of, I think I had all three of my kids, and I think they were all. I lived in my other house, the one I used to do the show from, for 37 years. And I think kids were a little blue, actually, about being in a different location. We always had Thanksgiving at my house pretty much. So it was, but then I think by Christmas they've had a little time to get used to it. So we're in the new house, and it's and we're happy with it. So we had a nice Christmas. We did have a nice Christmas time. I had all three of my kids, like I said, and you can't really ask for better than that. I'm 66 years old. And if all your kids speak to you and they still come home for that.
Yeah, you got that right. It's always a blessing to have family around.
Absolutely.
Anytime family gets together, it's just an amazing thing. We had an amazing Christmas, and we want to ask Samuel here. Hey, Samuel, man, what's going on, champ? How was your Christmas, Samuel? Did you make a lot of people happy? Samuel's the new boxing monkey from the WBA, man. Me and Samuel became real good buddies. Me and him had a boxing exhibition at the WBA convention a couple weeks ago, and Samuel, man, you know how to put them jabs and all of that together, man. So as Samuel travels around the world, he will be our new guest on the World Boxing Review each and every week. Samuel is the boxing monkey from Leon's boxing equipment with the WBA. Man, all right, Samuel, I'm glad it was a great boxing year. What do you think, Samuel? Yeah, it was good, man. It was good, man. Oh, man, thank you, man. And we're going to get into that. You know what I'm saying, Mark?
I do.
It's been some year for 2025, man, and just coming off of last week's blazing fight. Well, it was a real fight with Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua fight down here in Miami. A lot of speculation went out in the airwaves and stuff like that, but a lot of things manifested during this time. The aftermath of Jake Paul being knocked out. And you want to talk a little bit about that fight, Mark? What's your viewpoint?
Well, I think that it was, I don't know. We'll see how it goes for Jake Paul after this. I think it was kind of a case of a little bit of a day of reckoning, I guess. In my opinion, I have a difficult time regarding Jake Paul as a serious fighter, honestly. I don't know. It's been interesting. It's brought some interest to boxing, I guess, in a way. I don't know. I think that he took a step too far, I guess. Frankly, I think that Joshua's a real boxer, and Jake Paul's really not. He hung in there. It was, he gave an account of himself, but I don't really, I don't know. We'll see if this.
I'm gonna put it in the proper perspective. And first of all, I want to commend Eddie Hearns for a great promoter job
Mm.
at trying to find a high profile fighter that you have, like Anthony Joshua.
Right.
To find him a fight after coming a year and a few months of being knocked out, or the fight that he was winning and he just got caught.
Right.
And to find a fight where he can maximize his earning potential, but get him in a ring where he could sharpen his skills up and maximize the outcome, the exposure, to get two-time heavyweight champion. And I believe Eddie Hearns did that. And I want to commend Anthony Joshua for the way that he handled himself in all of the aftermath and before it and all that, before that fight. And Jake Paul for having enough courage and the nerve to challenge some of the best fighters in the world. Now's coming out is that they try to ask Anthony Joshua when he was signing, what way can we make it take it easy? And Anthony Joshua says, "Hey man, this is boxing. You don't take it easy." And so
Yeah.
this is come, but the old things in boxing stay to where it's supposed to be at, about a little man fighting a big man, a big experienced man. If you can recall, Mark, when Billy Conn fought Joe Louis there in Madison Square Garden, Billy Conn was winning the fight, as many people at ringside and watching said. But Joe Louis's size going down the stretch made the difference. When they asked Billy Conn, "Well, why did you start fighting Joe Louis like that?" He said, "Because I wanted to knock him out." And
Right,
Joe Louis' famous comment after that was, "You can run, but you can't hide." And he did knock Billy Conn out. And this is what happened in this Jake Paul fight. Jake Paul nowhere near the experience of Billy Conn, who was a great fighter, masterful boxer, Billy Conn. But Jake Paul wasn't boxing, he was running.
Right.
And, people say, "Well, how come Anthony Joshua didn't knock him out in the first round like he was supposed to? Was it fixed?" I said, no. I said, just think in a street fight, a guy takes off running down the street. He don't want to fight, so you got to chase him down and make him fight.
Right.
And that's what happened in the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua fight. With a big guy at 6'6", 6'7", like Anthony Joshua, who weighed in at 243 and some odd pounds to 216 pounds of Jake Paul. He just took his time, stopped him down, make him keep moving, hit him there, pot shotting him, as it's called, so he could slow him down. And once he slowed him down and got him in the position where he can set up the old-fashioned, Jake Paul fell for the oldest trick in the book. Shoot a punch low in the chest, make him reach, and his head was sitting right there on the platter. And Anthony Joshua buried that right hand. And let me tell you, man, the picture of that right hand where it's hitting Jake Paul in his head going like that is like when Rocky Marciano hit Joe Louis.
Jersey Joe Walcott.
Not Jersey Joe Walcott, excuse me, with that stunning shot. That picture lasts through the ages of Jersey Joe Walcott, distorted face, and that picture of Anthony Joshua bearing that right hand on Jake Paul for the ages. And then in the aftermath, I'm going to tell you something. When people were seeing Jake Paul going, whoo, like that in the ring, I had a fighter named Tim Austin, the Cincinnati kid, Mark, who you well know, who's inducted into the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame. He got his jaw broken 2 places, right here on the jaw and down here, in a world title fight, an IBF title fight against Boutilli. Tim Austin fought 8 rounds with a jaw broke in 2 places and end up knocking Tilly out to win the IBF bantamweight champion. Then got it fixed twice, his jaw, and kept the title for 9 title defenses. You're talking about a tough hombre, boy. That
Yeah.
Tim Austin is the best and toughest as you get it, man. So, to see that, the X-rays and things with Jake Paul's jaw being broken, all of that, it takes a time because guys get gun shy, and whether he was going to be able to fight again is a whole another different stories. But boxing is real, man. And when you climb up on that high echelon level, a gold Olympian, a 2-time heavyweight champion, they're nothing to fool around with, as you well know, Mark. And to see what happened, what we all knew was going to happen, he was going to get slaughtered and massacred in there. It stayed apart. And now things about Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight are emerging about on paper, the exhibition was fixed and Mike Tyson couldn't throw this kind of punch, that kind of punch. He couldn't do this or do that. And as that's unfolding about that information, it's to my understanding that in Nevada, they're bringing those lawsuits to court on Dana White for all the things that the fighters are saying.
Okay, so I didn't know any of this. So one thing I really appreciate your perspective there as far as the promotion, with the Jake Paul. But that's very interesting because I didn't think of it that way. But you're right. That was actually an excellent promotional job selling that thing. And but I did not know this about Tyson. And I mean, I guess I watched the fight. I kind of suspected it at the time, but I don't know. Is that looking like that actually is the case then?
That's what the rumor mills have, and it's coming from some pretty good sources. That's what the things that happened. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And that's a shame for but for them to come to Mike Tyson when in the certain situations he was in, he's not where he once was. He's down on money. He probably needed some extra cash or something, and they proposed something to him where that would help his situation out. And when you come to a guy that's in those type of situations and mention certain kind of money that he can get out of those situations that he's in, it creates an environment that's it's not appealing, and that's what happened. So. Jake Paul, he does a wonderful job with those women, promoting real women fights. And that Baumgardner who fought on the undercard, that fight was a great fight to watch.
It was.
And I think he has a niche with women's boxing, and I think he should stay the course promoting women's boxing because Jake Paul's doing such a great job at it. Jake Paul ain't all that bad. It's just that when he lets his ego and his mind race and think that he can go out and challenge the best fighters in the world. You got another thought coming. It takes grooming process. But then again, you look at Leon Spinks when he fought Muhammad Ali with 7 fights. And, Muhammad Ali, the greatest of all times, Leon, a 1976 gold medalist winner. Upset the greatest champion of the world, Muhammad Ali, by winning a decision to become heavyweight champion of the world. So it's a different perspective, but Leon Spinks had a lot of experience. He had some of the best coaches in the world at night. It looked like all of Philadelphia big-time trainers were in his corner that night, 50 million of them. Sam Solomon, Georgie Benton. There were so many great trainers in his corner, but he needed that in order to pull out an amazing upset off the greatest of all time. So, look, man, that's enough for,
Well, he sure did. I remember watching that fight and just saying, Lee Groves, a mutual friend of ours, Leon Spinks actually hit Ali the most that he was ever hit in any fight in that first fight, more than Holmes, actually. So that was, the Holmes fight ended sooner, but nevertheless, it was 15 rounds compared, the other one went 10, but nevertheless, Spinks had his night there. There was just no two ways about it, and it was, I think, with Leon Spinks, I love the guy. I thought he was a great guy. Spent a lot of time with him, in my lifetime. And, I think with, discipline problems, and whatnot, they probably thought, they had to get him into a title shot as soon as possible when they could make it pay, because once, he had trouble keeping him in training, I don't think there's any real secret about that. And, but he did it.
Butch Lewis and them, people forget about Butch Lewis, who had a magnificent way of promoting, one of the great all-time promoters of all time, Butch. He did a magnificent job with Leon and Michael Spinks and quite a few other champions that he had, but mainly the Spinkses from Leon, and then to take Michael all the way from undisputed light heavyweight champion and then on to undisputed heavyweight champion, that's a mark and second to none. But look, 2025 produced a lot of amazing outcomes, and we're talking about this Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua fight, which wasn't even a title fight. I look at it as a tune-up fight for Anthony Joshua, but a real fight that, just they're wiping the conversation right out from it. And I know Terence Crawford is happy someone got the news to switch to get it up off his rear end. But Terence Crawford, amazing champion, to fight Canelo Alvarez and to win that the way he did in grand style and grand fashion is a mark to a real champion. And, in a few weeks from that fight, Mark, you want to talk about some of that stuff that happened in a few weeks of Crawford winning?
Well, obviously the big, and I think you spoke on it already on the show here about, Crawford not wanting to pay his WBC sanction. And I think you made some very good points. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think the public at large, a lot of times, sees the commissions. Okay, yeah, they want their cut of the action. But the truth of the matter is, the commissions do make it happen. The way boxing is set up. It as far as everything, as far as putting on the show and keeping it just, obviously you can't have the promoters have just complete control of things. You have to have somebody overseeing that. And I think that he should pony up. It's not, that was billed as the WBC title was part of that. So I think he should pay. We're not talking about that much money for him at this part of the, and I'm sure with the tax laws too that's deductible against his pay. So I just don't, but I agree with everything you said. Anyway, I was watching the show, and I think that he, you and I were talking. Actually, I think before we went on the air about the fighter of the year, and I think you mentioned Usyk too. I think you got Crawford, you got Usyk, but I just wanted to chime in. I don't think we should forget about Inoue either. I think that he. As a candidate for it too, making 4 successful defenses as he did. I think it. It'll be in next month's Ring Magazine. I'm sure we'll hear about it before the issue actually comes out. But I think you've got 3 strong contenders, plus in the female side of it as well.
Yeah, well, Crawford in a matter of a couple weeks time, the aftermath of him just coming out and announcing that he's retiring, with all of them saying that he relinquished his belts. They've been contacted for his retirement. The WBO, the WBC, who stripped them at their convention. The IBF, all of them have successfully lined up, and they have guys lined up to fight for that 168 pound title that he relinquished. And don't forget, that 155 undisputed championship that he never made a decision at. The IBF stripped him of that. And now all of those other belts that he had are gone and for retirement purposes. And now it opened the door for other contenders to fight for those world titles. So in a week's time, all of that took place.
How is that all going to play out now? Okay, because I guess with the holidays, I kind of lost on that. How is that going to play out? I mean, are they going to keep the title unified, or is it going to end up being like 4 champions in that division?
Yeah, there'll be four new champions. Wow. Now that they already announced the 1s and 2s that are going to be fighting for those vacant titles that were left vacant because of retirement.
Okay.
Crawford. So he announced the retirement. Now all of them open spots for other different fighters, creating opportunities. So hey, look, man, this is a matter in 2 weeks' time. He wins. The convention gets stripped. Next thing you know, he makes statements about Jose Sulaiman and Mauricio Sulaiman and a personal thing. And the next thing you know, the snowball's rolling down the hill. He announced retirement. Next thing you know, the rest organizations now have announced that, for retirement, they've been noticed, and those titles are going to be fought by such and such a people down the line. And one day we'll have a show to announce those guys sitting in the number 1 and 2 spots of those organizations coming into the new year that's going to have the opportunity to fight for the world title belt. So, we just wish Terence Crawford for the new year and his family the best. And may God bless him with his business endeavors that he plans to ensue. And I think that he should have waited a little time because he had time on his side to weigh out the pros and cons, and then make a decision. Don't make a rational, emotional decision. I think in the long run, that may come back to haunt him, because he may have to come back over all of those bridges again when he comes and say, man, because most fighters, you see, retirement ain't forever, and they want to strap up. No sooner somebody comes, it throws a bag full of money on the table, and then they want to try to cross over those avenues.
So you don't sound like you have a lot of doubt that he's going to come back and fight again. Then you think this is just kind of a tactical retirement, maybe? I mean, that's.
I think it has to be for somebody to make such a drastic move in a short period of time like that. He just won not too recently. Then all of the snowballs start rolling down the hill. So I think he has to regroup with his team, his advisors, and make because he's a great fighter, man. He can fight on the inside, outside, stick and move. He got great defense, great offense, and he can land and bring excitement with the knockout and stuff like that. And 38 years old at this, in the terms of a boxer, it's old, but it ain't, in the other scheme of things of great fighters, it ain't too old when you have fighters still great champions who have great, like Bernard Hopkins, who fought for a long time. So we'll see how all of that plays out for Terence Crawford. We wish the best for him and his family. But you have mentioned Usyk, Mark, and Usyk was in a similar situation. He said he had a injury. He was supposed to fight the number 1 contender. He asked the WBO. Wardley, he was supposed to fight for the mandatory for the WBO heavyweight championship. Usyk asked for extension because of injury after his last fight. They took him. He had to see the physicians and stuff to examine him, make sure that what he was saying, that he was real injured. He got granted the injury provision for the championship from the championship committees from the WBO. And then after a while, he was at the convention or
Okay.
at the WBC convention. Then he just announced that, hey, look, I'm going to release that WBO title, and that opened the door for fighters to fight for that WBO title. So, Usyk was in a similar situation, and he weighed out the pros and cons, and he didn't want to do that WBO title at this time. So we look down the road. They're contemplating Usyk and Wilder. So I think that's a great matchup. The one hit wonder, the one horse pony, and Deontay Wilder. I think it would be he has to be very tricky to catch Usyk with that one trick pony that he got.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to happen. Your viewpoint's Mark.
No, I agree 1,000%. I think that Wilder, was a great champion in his day, and I was a huge fan. There's no question about it. I mean, he had that booming punch, and I've met him in Canastota, a couple of times. Very nice man, and but no, I don't think at this point of his career, I don't think there's too much question about it. I mean, I think Usyk's the man right now. I don't think anybody, I don't think there's too much question about that. But it's for Wilder, I think he's picking up a good payday. I think that's about the size of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think.
Yeah, and we'll turn the clock to Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. Boy, that bring us some excitement this year. That was a dynamite fight for the second time.
Yeah, it sure was. It sure was. Yeah. It was both put on a great show. It was kind of, I wouldn't say it was quite like a Ward Gotti, but it was it had its fair share of fireworks, to be sure.
Yeah, and it had some thrilling moments, in the fight, but all the fight juggle leading up to that fight over in England, man, it was a lot of conversation going on, back and forth, the arguing, the bickering about, even the old fights between their fathers emerged from that, and also, later on the show, we're going to be talking about, the International Boxing Hall of Fame, and Nigel Benn is going in with that class in the International. And we'll talk about that a little later on. But yeah, that was a great fight. And
yes.
to put women's Carissa Shields. Carissa Shields is doing excellent, carrying women's boxing on her shoulder. All the gold medals she won in the, as an amateur, and to come on and to move up in weight class to win all of them belts. And now she's fighting for the heavyweight champion ship. She won that and is getting ready to defend that. A heck of a year also for Carissa Shields.
Yes. Well, I think a lot of years she'd probably be the fighter of the year, actually. This year was just such a good year, like we've been saying. I mean, it was such a, that she probably won't get it this year. But, I think a lot of years that what she did this year would probably put her there, actually, at as far as fighter of the year. I mean, she's phenomenal. She's phenomenal. And she's, she's dominating right now. Do you think there's any chance at all? I mean, I know they throw out, talk about Layla Ali once in a while. I personally hope she stays retired. I think it,
I think Layla, she clearly said it. And talk about Layla, she did a beautiful job on that telecast with for the Jake Paul Anthony Joshua fight. It was nice to see her on there. She does such a beautiful job at commentating. I think she has a great future, not only in boxing commentation, but her husband is a football player. Maybe she can move on to the NFL and commentate for the NFL. She does a great job. I think she's very colorful. She's always been stunning, but she's tough as all outdoors. And her father just happens to be the greatest of all times. And not only that, Mark, as you well know, Layla is the only undefeated woman's fighter in the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Wow. How about that? she was totally, yeah, she was totally dominant. I'd say really, you look at her career. I think the only fight that was, when she fought Sister Smoke there, Joe Frazier's daughter, who I think fought way over her head in that fight, honestly. I mean, I think Jackie
Yeah,
actually, she did. That was probably, even though she lost, I think you'd probably have to regard that as her greatest performance. I mean, that was a nip and tuck fight for a while. I think
yeah,
Layla later rounds there. I was at that fight,
yeah.
and Layla pulled it out in the later, big time in the later rounds. But yeah, I think the Layla Ali, I would still regard her as the greatest women's boxer of all time. And she had the championship gene, but she did something with it. She
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
and I wanted to
Yeah,
address what you were saying about the commentating, though. She's an extremely intelligent woman. I mean, she's very personable. She has if you know Layla, and I know you do, and I don't, not claiming to know her well, but when she talks to you, she looks directly at you and she listens to what you have to say, and she answers it. I mean, she's got that quality, where she does analyze stuff in her mind. And so yeah, I think she'd be a great football commentator. Maybe you gave him an idea there. I would love to see her on the telecast. I think she'd
yeah,
be.
yeah. Me too. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
The more you do it, like anything, the sharper your skill get. And uh, her skills were sharp. She's looking good,
Yes.
like a champ should, and she always does that with her cooking shows and all
Yeah.
of that she does. So let's move to Katie Taylor, man. Katie
Okay.
Taylor, a heck of a year too, Mark.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. How many times did she fight? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
I
How
think
many
she
fights?
fought twice. I think she
Twice.
fought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good year for her, no question about it. I mean, she's still is she still undefeated? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Is she still
Yeah,
undefeated?
yeah. Katie Taylor's, she when it comes to uh, like Carissa Shields, she's on the top of her game in women's boxing, man. Let me tell you, well, boxing period. To a gold medalist winner herself, and to win all of those belts that she have won, and always she's never in a dull fight. She's always
Right.
in a very colorful fight. Katie Taylor is, but the future looks brighter. But let me tell you, on the Jake Paul under co-main event, which was a real title fight, man, with Ben Gardner. Let me tell you, boy, not only she's another
Right.
eye catcher too, like Layla is. I mean, she's absolutely stunningly beautiful, but as beautiful as she looks outside the ring, she can put a performance on inside the ring also that's second to none, man. She's one of those type of fighters that are very, very colorful. And I think modeling and all of that stuff that she does,
Well, you
it goes a long
mentioned
way.
the Jake Paul fight. Again, if you remember the next day, a lot of the conversation was about the Katie Taylor fight. Actually, that was he kind of stole the show that day. Actually, here you had Jake in there, but it was the main event. But the next day, everybody was talking about, boy, the real fight was the women's bout. With Katie Taylor. So the year she won the gold medal, was she the only American to win a medal in boxing that year, or a gold medal?
Who's that?
Katie.
Katie Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah, from overseas. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you think, Simon? Huh? What do you think, man? We're forgetting about who? Hey, this is Simon the Boxing Monkey with Leon's boxing equipment in the WBA, man. We had a boxing thing, but Leon the Boxing Monkey, man. We're leaving out Devin Haney and Boots Ennis and Shakur Stevenson, man. We can't leave them guys out. Them
No.
guys, that stunning performance that Devin Haney had, man, when no one gave him no chance in crap. Everybody thought that he was going to get wiped out, knocked out, but he rose to the occasion to win in grand style and grand fashion by knocking what you call him down and winning. in that fight. We can't forget about him. 2026 looks bright for him with all of those great fight that's out there for him. What do you think about Devin Haney, Mark?
Well, yeah, I think it's the sky's the limit for him right now. And you're right about that. He wasn't, predicted to win, and he did. And I think that I think a lot of fighters. You mentioned all those guys. I think you and I before the show we talked about Inoue a little bit. I don't think we did on the show, and he had a very good year as well. 4 defenses, and I don't think we can leave him out of the mix either. It wasn't maybe his opponents weren't, but he had that one fight there where he actually had to come back to win that. He was thing about Inoue is I think for you as a trainer, you got to look at a guy like him. It's just like perfect form that he has. I just look at Inoue and you think, boy, if you could get a kid just be able to get all his fundamentals down like that and execute. I think that's what stands out to me about him. He just not only has he got the talent, but he also is able to he does everything right, and he executes on it. You and I, we do the profiles and everything. You go back on fighters. I mean, if you ever watch, I told my son Theo, who's a boxing coach, I said a guy to watch was Billy Backus. If you remember when he was in his reign, Billy Backus didn't really have the great ability like a lot of champs did, but and his uncle Carmen Basilio, he didn't do things by the textbook either, but yeah, he taught Billy to, if you know what I mean. I mean, Billy Backus, you watch, that was a fundamentally perfect fighter. It really was. I mean, he kept his hands up, he did everything, jabbed his way in. He did everything the way that a boxer was supposed to, and he went an awful long way with that. He actually had the welterweight title for a while, and won a lot of big fights. So he really, for a guy that, like I said, wasn't maybe born with a gift, like Uncle Carm was, he nevertheless he was able to, by using just very good fundamentals, he went an awful long ways with it. And that kind of, in a way, just kind of reminds me of that. When I watch him, I just think, wow, that guy does everything right.
Yeah, well, absolutely. That's the same way with Usyk and Terence Crawford. Their skills are fundamentally sound. But let me tell you, the amazing rising star in boxing is Boots Ennis. It ain't all he needs is those guys in those different weight classes that are out there that have good popular names to fight Boots Ennis, and you're going to see something spectacular from him. And I'm glad that he teamed up with Eddie Hearns, him and his team, is because Eddie Hearns is coming into Philadelphia with his promotions to promote Boots Ennis, and he's selling out the arenas there in Philadelphia to make this young man a star. And the hardest thing for a fighter to do is to fight these big fights in his hometown and rise to the occasion. And Boots Ennis showing, because if you can do it there in your hometown, you can do it anywhere. So, 2026 for Boots Ennis is looking phenomenal. He's one of those guys who got the flash and the dash and the dare, and boy, can he punch, boy, and put punches and bunches second to none. And he's doing that. And 2026 looks bright for Ennis, man, so he can get those bigger and better paydays and better fighters, so people that he can really get recognized.
Give it a lot to look forward to this year. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing him. You're right. I think this is, about Boots, though. I think you're right about that. I mean, he's at his peak right. I mean, he's rising right now. He's coming right to his peak of
stardom. Stardom, real stardom.
Yeah,
his name was buzzing, but now, stardom that like Crawford was. Crawford was there. Everybody who were real boxing enthusiasts knew of Terence Crawford. They knew he was a great fighter. He just needed a fighter that everybody else knew that can really fight real good, like Canelo Alvarez, so he could show exactly who he was and what he can do. These guys like Ennis is doing that, and Shakur Stevenson January 31st in New York. He goes up with Telavito Lopez, and boy, that's going to be a bar burner. From you got a New Jersey guy going against a New York guy, Hispanic, one black, Hispanic in those areas. Man, it's going to be rocking in that house, man, because they're talking that stuff. You know how it is, man. They're talking the talk and walking the walk. And boy, does that make up style-wise. This is a great fight, Mark.
Yeah, but you got me thinking now. Boy, I'm thinking I might have to take a run down there and see that. Actually, that because I don't go like I used to anymore. But I did. I worked in New York. I lived in New York City for 5-6 years, and I still go down there to work once in a while. And I might actually have to take a run down there for that fight. I think I might have to see that one. I'm sure it'll be very electric, to be sure.
Hey, I tell people all the time, Shakur Stevenson, don't let that handshake and the smile fool you, because in the boxing ring, he'll fool you. Boy,
Yes,
you're talking about fundamentally sound. This young man, he got will and skill, fundamentally sound, and he can take a pretty decent shot. You know what I mean? He proved that in a fight before, and he can put punches in bunches himself. So Shakur Stevenson had a great year this year, and we look to see him, Telavito Lopez, in that great fight for 2026, Mark. So, 2026 is looking promising. We're moving out of 2025. We only have less than a week or so left before the New Year's. But, we'll go over some announcement. It looks like, Mark, Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame, who you're vice president of. Larry was on the show last week. We were talking about Tony Graziano, but y'all are getting ready to announce your class next year sometime. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's shaping up. It's shaping up pretty good, actually. On the local part of it, as far as the Carmen Basilio Award, we're going to give it, not Carmen Basilio Award, excuse me, that's the scholarship. I misspoke. The Gino Arlada Award. We're going to give it to Dave Stafford, who I believe you know. He's the photographer and videographer. And he's been a real friend of the club for a long time. And so we're very pleased to be honoring Dave for that award. That's probably long overdue, actually.
When y'all announce your class, it's going to be great. And lining up also to announce their class is the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame with Steve Canton and them. Down there, the SJC gym, January 3rd, the beginning of every year. The inductees that are going to be inducted, they have to show up down at the SJC gym where the Boxing Hall of Fame Museum is at, there in Fort Myers, Florida.
Now, when is the ceremony for that? When is the actual event?
The event is the 3rd, January 3rd, in June is the actual induction ceremonies. They have it in June, in St. Petersburg. They have it, but to announce that January 3rd down in Fort Myers, the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame class of 2026. I just say come down there and watch who they're going to announce. It's always they have a lunch in the SJC gym, one of the oldest gyms around down there. Sometimes I go down there and volunteer for a day or so down there in the gym. Steve Canton always does such a great job with all of that. And then you get a chance to look at the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame and museum, the plaques, the fists, gloves, trunks, and all of that in the museum, inside the gym in the museum. It's very, very nice. It's something nice and spectacular. And you can go to their website if you want to attend and get all the information's up there on the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame site, man. That's just amazing work that Steve Canton does down there, like you, Mark, with the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I really like to go. How far is it from Canastore? I mean, when do the weeks line up? Is it like a couple weeks later, or because you got Atlantic
Uh,
City in there too?
yeah, it's around the same time period. They intertwine. I think this year, so we have to
Someone,
look all at all of that. Yeah,
I'm going to try to
off
go
the
to
top of
Indiana
my
this
head,
year.
I feel. Yeah, well, Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame is going to be May 1st and 2nd.
Right.
There at the Hilton, and Craig Hawk, who's president of the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame, uh, at the WBA convention. We had the pleasure, Craig and myself, with the governing board of the WBA, is who got the nod was Gilberto Mendoza Jr., who's president of the WBA. He's going to be inducted. His father was inducted last year. He's going to be inducted this year. Also, Jose Oliver, who's a longtime advisor, consultant, supervisor for the WBA. He got inducted also. He got the nod from the voting committee. And also, Jill Diamond is also going in the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame for all the great work she does as president of the WBC Cares program, and also the global secretary for the WBA. All the great work that she does for that organization. She got the nod. But also Tracy Patterson, we want to say happy
Yep.
birthday to you, because yesterday was his birthday. He's going into the Indiana Boxing Hall of Fame along with Floyd Patterson,
Yeah.
who we did a profile together on Floyd
Yes, we did.
Patterson, a great champion,
Yeah.
and also someone that got inducted last year in the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame, Henry Tillman, is
Oh,
going in there. Henry
okay.
Tillman, if people don't watch, he's a Hall of Famer, been inducted last year into the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame. He's a gold medal Olympic winner. He stopped Mike Tyson twice from being an Olympian on the Olympic team. And also, he was a great pro too. Him and Mike Tyson fought
He
as a
was.
pro.
He was. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Henry Tillman.
and
Yeah. Yeah. That was one of the things I tried to stress this year when we put him into Rochester. My article that I wrote on him, I just said, the people, he wasn't a world champion as a pro, but he did have a very successful career. He fought, and mostly beat a lot of good guys, in the pros. And it shouldn't be, it was a guy that, Henry Tillman was. I'm looking forward to seeing him. I'm gonna have to. I'd make it to Indiana just to see him again. We had a great time with him this past year in Rochester. It was too bad you weren't there, because it really we had a great time with those guys. Henry Tillman, Michael Nunn, Freddie Ladd. They were all wonderful. They really were. That was a very nice weekend. And I'm looking forward to going to Indiana. I got like I said, in Florida. I would really like to go. So, and I wish they didn't have it quite
yeah,
so close to Canastota, but I
yeah,
am. One of these years, I'm
yeah,
just going to suck it up and go. I haven't been to Atlantic City yet either, and I think I'm really depriving myself by missing that one too. But if you remember, last year it was 1 week exactly after Rochester.
yeah. It was, and
You'd,
it was stunning.
you'd
I
have
had
to
to.
you'd have to live in my body to know after the Rochester. Believe me, I'm not going anywhere for probably a couple of weeks afterwards. I'm going to rest. I,
Yeah, but
I really,
also for 2026, the National Boxing Hall of Fame uh, had announced their class, for 2026, and that is from in April. Bradley, Tim Bradley, he's going in. Yaki Lopez, he got the nod in a list of tremendous guys that are going in. So also,
that's in Los
the
Angeles.
in what's that?
That's in Los Angeles, the National.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
it's at right outside of LA. It is,
okay.
you know. But we have the International Boxing Hall of Fame who introduced their class. So, you got Triple G, you got Antonio Taliver, you got Nigel Benn and Jackie Navarro bantamweight who's going on, and some other great, and that's from June 11th to June 14th, 226. So, Tolliver, he deserves definitely the nod, just like the rest of them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm very happy about Tarver getting in. Actually, he's I'm glad to see he made it. I think always represented boxing very well. And I think I'm a little sad that his son hasn't, to my knowledge, he hasn't had a fight in a while now. I thought that Antonio Tarver Jr., we honored him up in Rochester one year as upcoming prospect, and I don't know. I'd like to see him get back in the ring, but maybe he had his share. I don't think. Um, I'm not sure that his dad was really thrilled about him getting into boxing, though, was he?
No.
No, yeah.
No.
So
but Tolliver's
did you
fought
see him
a
at all?
lot of great contenders, and he fought a lot of great champions, and I'm happy and glad for him
Yeah.
that he got the nod, because he
Yeah.
rightfully he deserved it,
Yeah.
with the International Boxing Hall of Fame. But let me tell you, Mark, just the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, we all know what that is. Boxing Day, 117 years ago, Jack Johnson became the first African American heavyweight champion of the world when he beat Tommy Burns over in Sydney, Australia. And when the police had to jump in to stop the round and knock the cameras down and cut the film off. But 117 years ago, now traveling with us, we have the Jack Johnson Legacy Belt, who we have teamed up with Joel Freeman and the Joel Freeman Foundation, and also the Rosetta Stone Institute, that universe. We created this legacy belt that right here of Jack Johnson. So this is 117 years to commemorate Jack Johnson as being the first African American heavyweight champion of the world. And this legacy belt that we take around with us, along with the exhibit now, where people can take a picture of this fine crafted championship belt that I helped design with the Institute and Joe Freeman to bring out to keep Jack Johnson's legacy going. So, and it's his signature down here at the bottom of the belt, and the dates, and when he fought Tommy Burns, and over here is the great fight that he had with Jeffries. But 117 years ago is a mark second to none. But as we mentioned that, Mark, we're here today with you is the profile, another great in boxing, Jack Dempsey. Well, let's talk about Jack Dempsey. He had a couple names. Wasn't his name one of his nicknames Kid Blackie?
Kid Blackie was his original nickname. Yeah, that was actually what he originally fought as. We talked about it on the last show, but we didn't have any video op, so I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of things that I felt like got short shifted that last show. Yeah, Kid Blackie, that was he had some Cherokee in him, and he had kind of even though Dempsey obviously is a very Irish name, and he was mostly Irish, but he did have some Cherokee. He also has some Jewish. And but he did have black hair, and so they which was probably from the Cherokee side, and he was originally nicknamed Kid Blackie. See, the thing is, Jack Dempsey, his last name was Dempsey, but his name was actually William Harrison Dempsey, and he had two brothers that actually fought under the name Jack Dempsey. So that was Jack Dempsey had been, of course, a great middleweight champion prior to the Manasseh Mauler Jack Dempsey, but that was so they kind of took that name. That was fairly common in boxing in those days. You had a lot of you had guys, young Corbett, young Jack Johnson. You had fighters that used names. So William Harrison Dempsey's last name was Dempsey, so they billed him as Jack, which he just pretty much adopted as his name, throughout most of his life. But yeah, he had, the thing about Jack Dempsey, I guess it stands out to me is I don't think you'll ever again, at least not out of the United States, you'll ever have anybody that was molded into what he became in the ring by his life circumstances the way Jack Dempsey was. I mean, the kid, thankfully, and I agree with child labor laws. I don't think that 12-year-old kids should be going into mines and stuff like that. However, I do think the mining, wood cutting, the kind of hard scrabble existence as his family kind of made their trek. His Mormon family was making their trek across the country to get to Utah. I don't think you'll ever see circumstances like that'll create the fighter like Jack Dempsey. The man was just an extremely strong. He was just an extremely strong man, and it was, was built by that. And he, you name it, as far as manual labor, he did it. And he, boxing was a way to make some, decent money for them. I mean, you laugh about it today, but I mean, he fought, fights in bars and stuff, or outside of bars. Various venues, most of which are not recorded. Most sources will say, the record is quite incomplete. But nevertheless, he'd do it for a couple of bucks. Well, a couple of bucks back then was actually some money. So, it was well worth it. And he saw,
Yeah.
boxing
Well,
as a way to get
anyone who could, like Dempsey, who competed from 1914 to 1927, and then him winning the world championship, the heavyweight championship, that is, from 1919 to 1926.
Right.
Those type of reigns and time periods, to be great like that, where everyone knew who the heavyweight championship was, and when the man that fought the man that beat the man that was the man, Jack Dempsey was it, and everybody knew that he was it. He was one of, like you were saying, Mark, one of those specimens that when you see him, he's well chiseled, well carved out. He looked like a brawler, but he was a ladies' man too. Women liked it. The women liked him like they liked all boxing.
That he was. Yes, he was a ladies' man. Yes, sir. He was, he was a gentleman. Like I said, I remember, hearing Red Fox say one time, that, Jack Dempsey was a champion in the ring and he was a gentleman outside of it, and that was certainly true about him. He was a gentleman. He loved his fans. I think a lot of modern stars would really do well to, follow his lead a little bit. I mean, he was just very, I don't think you or I, we could have walked up to Jack Dempsey. We would have had any trouble talking with him. He wouldn't have looked at either one of us like, who the heck are you? He would have been very happy to speak about both of us. And he loved to talk boxing. When Muhammad Ali first came on the scene, young Cassius Clay, they asked Dempsey what he thought of him, and they asked him if he thought he could fight. And Dempsey says, this is about 1962-ish. And Dempsey says, I don't really know at this point if he can fight or not, but I'm rooting for him all the way because he's got people talking about boxing again. And that really was, completely true. And I mean, that was, Dempsey loved the sport. I think he kind of harbored a desire. He was actually hoping that someday there would be a federal commission, and I think he wanted to be the head of it. I think that was kind of his, pipe dream, was to be the head of a national boxing organization. And again, we can get on the pros and cons of that. I personally have never favored the idea of a national commission. I think it's a terrible idea. But anyway, regardless, he was just a very popular figure. I wanted to show you a couple items here. This was from the year here.
Yeah, while you're figuring and looking it out, we'll make people aware. Jack Dempsey, he had 84 fights, 68 wins, KO wins 53, and also 6 losses and 10 draws. But go ahead, Mark. You got your stuff ready. Let's see what you got.
I want to say about that. Okay, in reality, he had well over 100 fights. A lot of them aren't credited, and he had a lot of them. That just never got recorded out in the West. One thing, and I mentioned it on the last show, but he wasn't really at the time he was fighting Willard. Dempsey wasn't really that well known. He was in the West, but the people in New York City, the fight was in Toledo, Ohio, and which is kind of the Eastern Midwest, and the western part of the country was very well aware of him. His reputation preceded him. And the eastern, like I say, New York, Philadelphia, not so much. Of course, he came into that later on, proceeded to live most of his life in New York. But he, at that time, so when he beat Willard, of course, that was a considerable upset. I just wanted to show you, this was, as the thing was called Jack Dempsey's Fight magazine. And it's from 1934, and it's a pulp. It's a pulp magazine, and it's reputed to have been edited by Jack Dempsey. I don't know how much he actually had to do with it, but this is there's still some interest in it because this is a repro of the very first issue of it, that came out. And of course, he was the topic of several books. This is one here, and I don't have a book jacket on it, unfortunately, but it's called Round by Round. By Jack Dempsey, and it's actually incredible book. I'll tell you, if you can find that Round by Round, if you can find it in a library somewhere, I would recommend it to anybody. It really was a very good read. And then later on, years later, Dempsey did another autobiography, which kind of follows up, and it's good. It's not quite as good as the first one. I didn't think. I really enjoyed the first, and of course, we mentioned Nat Fleischer a lot. This was Jack Dempsey, The Idol of Fistania by Nat Fleischer. And
Nat Fletcher, who started the Ring magazine, a boxing enthusiast. He was a walking encyclopedia when it came to boxing. Nat Fletcher was, but also you talk about New Jersey and New York and Pennsylvania. Dempsey generated the first $1 million gate in 1921, Mark, as you well know, against George Carpenter. It was, I think, $1,789,238 gate, man. So, that's just simply amazing during that time in 1921. Don't forget, the roaring 20s, and, right out of the Depression and all of that, for you to get a gate that to be the first $1 million gate is a mark second to none in boxing history. And Dempsey was just the guy who was a part of it when it came to the Big Doe show.
Absolutely. I don't think you could really. I don't think you could say enough about that. Honestly, I mean, it was right. I mean, people wanted to see him. That was to do $1 million gate. You think about $1 million back then, and I don't have the inflation calculator in front of me, but boy, it's a lot more at today's money. And they did that with no closed circuit, no pay-per-view, no. There wasn't any television. Obviously, there was just to get $1 million at the gate at that time was just an incredible thing.
But you got to remember, radio was merging to be big time. But that $1 million gate, then later he drew the first $2 million gate in 1927 with the rematch of Gene Tunney.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, over 100,000 people at it, and that actually is always that was kind of a controversy that kind of really worked out to Jack's benefit. He always thought, because Dempsey was always, Dempsey called it as he saw it. He always told it, and he always said about that fight. That was always very controversial because Dempsey was such a popular champion. They call it the long count fight. I don't personally. I watch that, and I think, and I'm talking as a huge fan of Jack Dempsey, but I don't think that he got short shrifted in it. He wouldn't get to the neutral corner. The referee did the right thing. He could have picked up the count later, but if you look at the condition that Tunney was in at the time, I mean, he he would have beaten the count anyway, I think. And Dempsey thought so too. And Dempsey always said about that worked out really good for him. He says, because of the controversy, everybody forgets that I lost the fight badly, which he did. Tony knocked him down in the next round. But it's given boxing fans something to talk about for years. I mean, there's still, you can go on YouTube. There's tons of clips of that, and with a little clock in the top showing how long he was down.
Yeah, but man, we can't, Jack Johnson fought Fireman Jim Flynn, but Fireman Jim Flynn as a contender, he fought Dempsey. Talk to us what happened about that.
Well, that's again highly controversial. I always take the view on all that stuff. See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. I don't know. It does seem kind of funny. They both fights lasted one round. With each of them going out in one round. I don't know. That's of course widely reputed. That it's hard for me given Dempsey's, with all due respect to Flynn, I can't really.
Was the fight fixed? Many historians said the fight was in the mix. It was in the tank.
Yeah, well, they were friends, fellow Irishmen. I think I think there might have been. I don't know that. Like I said, I don't know it, but you kind of wonder though. It does seem, yeah. I mean, Dempsey, if you saw what he could get hit with and get back up, it's just hard for me to believe. I can't picture Dempsey going out in one round, but hey, things happen. I don't know. Again, they were in there for the money, and it wasn't, at that time with Flynn. Flynn was probably actually the bigger name at the time. But it was more, about the money than the glory, I would say, for Dempsey at that time, so, something.
But give Dempsey credit. Come on, Mark. He did come back in 1918 and knock him out in the first round, right? In the rematch. He got rid of him, right? Dempsey did in the first round. Like you said, he revenged the loss, and he gave it to him the way he gave it to him in a first round knockout. In the rematch, so to keep that he was just that great. Jack Dempsey was. We got to give him his credit, man. So, Mark, what else you want to say about Jack Dempsey, and what else do you have to show us here?
I got a couple more things. I don't know. It depends on how much you want me to go around the room. I'm getting set here. I'm actually coming to you today from my new boxing room at my new house, and it's still taking shape. I've still got a lot of unopened boxes yet, and a couple things I couldn't find. But this book here, Roger Kahn, this came out a few years ago. A Flame of Pure Fire. By Roger Kahn, who, for baseball fans, you'll remember he was the author of The Boys of Summer about the Brooklyn Dodgers. But that is an excellent book, very well researched. And I think Kahn did a good job taking you back there. I guess I was going to tell people if you read one book on Jack Dempsey, that would probably be the one to read. I think that he really took you back on that. And he talks about the Flynn fights in there and, of course, the Tunney fights. I wanted to mention, though, because, again, everybody remembers the long count fight. A lot of people don't realize that Dempsey wasn't guaranteed an automatic rematch against Tunney. He lost pretty badly in the first fight, and it was decisive. It had been a while since, the heavyweight championship generally didn't change on a decision, but that one, was so, Tunney won so decisively that, of course, it had to changed. And Dempsey gave one of his famous lines to his wife afterwards. His wife then, Estelle Taylor. He said, "Honey, I forgot to duck." Tony gave it to him pretty good in that fight, and but he wasn't guaranteed a rematch. It was he actually had to fight Jack Sharkey in between. And that was actually a fascinating fight, with because Dempsey was obviously coming to the end of the line, and Sharkey was on his way up, and that was Sharkey and Tunney were probably considered the two leading young heavyweights at that time, and they thought it was a pretty nip and tuck battle, actually. Some people thought Dempsey was ahead. Some people thought Sharkey was ahead. So it was going, into the eighth round. Well, Dempsey was definitely fouling him pretty bad. I mean, he watched the film. Jack was throwing, some low blows. Well, he Sharkey turned to complain to the referee, and boy, big mistake. As the referee always tells you, defend yourself at all times. Be ready at all times. Because he turned to the referee, and Dempsey just left hook right to the side of the head. And I misspoke on the first show we did on Dempsey. I said that it was a right cross, and it wasn't. I had some questions about that when I was saying that thing. Was that right? And so I went on YouTube and watched it again, and it was just a beauty of a left hook. And that was all she wrote for Sharkey. I think he was unconscious for some time after that. And there were people that questioned whether that was good sportsmanship, hitting him when he was looking away. And Dempsey had another one of his famous lines. He said, well, what was I supposed to do? Write him a letter?
Yeah, but after those type of fights, when he retired, Dempsey did. He took on wrestling. He went into wrestling. He became a pretty good wrestler.
Yeah, he refereed a lot of wrestling too. It was he was big on that. Yeah, he refereed wrestling and boxing. He kept a foot in the sport. But yeah, he did. He did. Him and Max Baer. A lot of the old. There was nothing. A lot of the champs around that time, and Max Baer, Primo Carnera, Dempsey, got involved in wrestling. It was that really wasn't that unusual. Joe Louis did years later, Ezra Charles, Josie Joe Walcott. So it was.
And the great Muhammad Ali did too. With he did some great things with the Hawk, who just passed recently. Hulk Hogan. But let's close this up.
Okay.
We his death. What was it? May 31st, 1983, something like that.
So that's exactly right. Yeah, I never met him, and I always kind of felt bad about that. The restaurant closed about 9 years earlier. It closed in '74, and I was never there. And I. But I made a great background in The Godfather. Remember the Jack Dempsey? The Jack Dempsey's the big. And I always had hoped to go, and I'd always hoped, because if he was there, you definitely would meet him. He came into his place, and I don't know, I don't want to cause anything, but I do have a little. It was something I kind of set up in my room here. Well, here behind me, I have your friend Ferdy Pacheco's painting of Jack Dempsey. And I have Joe Louis, and there's Gene Tunney here, and. That was, I don't know how well that showed up, but I did want to show you, though. I've got a little, I bought a display case. I've just had it for a couple of weeks, this display case, but my son Theo and I actually went in a snowstorm and got it. And I have a little shrine, the Jack Dempsey restaurant here. I have some of the menus and waitress tabs. And this was something I wanted to show on the last show. This is the Manassas, Colorado Police. That is actually what they wear on their shoulders. This is right here. And, it says Manassas, the birthplace of Jack Dempsey. And I just got this yesterday. This was every year. Last year I got Tommy Burns's book there, Scientific Boxing and Self-Defense, and it's signed by Tommy. And that was a Christmas present I got myself. And I got it from England and arrived on December 26th, the next day. And this year, I got this year. This is, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but it's an ashtray from the Jack Dempsey restaurant. And I don't know if you remember, well, you do for sure, but, your younger viewers here probably don't remember that a lot of places, that was a big thing, having ashtrays, with the place emblazoned on them. And I don't ever condone stealing, but there was a lot of times that was a very common thing, just to go somewhere and swipe the ashtray. And I guess they probably viewed it as advertising, a form of it. And so I don't know. I said to my wife, I said, the ashtray, I said, probably somebody in that guy's family probably swiped it. I don't know I doubt they sold ashtrays or had a thing. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. That was something I wanted. I've got a book of matches too. They have the pop up, where Dempsey's pops up in the matches, and I can't find it. I don't know. It's probably still
Yeah.
close in the box. I'm still
Well,
making the move.
the matches and stuff like that is always great to collect and all of that of any fighter to have great memorabilia to go along with your stories and your tales. But Dempsey died of a fatal heart attack. To my understanding, at the age of 87, it is, I think, in
Yeah.
New York City.
Yes, he did. That was He hadn't been. Gene Tunney died in '78. And I think he took it. I remember at the time when he died, I remember the exact quote. He said, I suddenly feel very old, and it was like, Tony was a little younger than Dempsey, but he died. I think Jack actually took that pretty bad because they did become very good friends later on, and I think that Jack certainly realized they were intrinsically locked together, in history. And, he hadn't been in real terrible health, but by all accounts, he seemed to keep everything about him pretty good, though, right until the
Hey,
end.
look, with heart failure at 87 years old, that ain't a bad run,
No, no,
And
I make
is
it 87. I'll be.
and he's buried in the Southampton Cemetery in Southampton, New York. That's where his
Yeah.
grave rests. Dempsey's grave, man. But what a hell of a career he had! What a hell of a run! He's in. He was inducted with that massive class into the Ring Magazine Hall of Fame in 1954, where a bunch of them went in that first class. A bunch of greats with Nat Fletcher had, who was basically the founder of Hall of Fames and stuff like that. It was a great run. And then I believe in 1990, the International, when they bring a whole bunch of old timers into that class, he was a part of that International Boxing Hall of Fame, where they bring a bunch of fighters into the hall. But without a doubt, Jack Johnson will always, always be remembered in the history of boxing, what he's done inside the ring and outside the ring. So, Mark, in closing, what do you want to say?
Well, I want to say that I think it's it's been a year that we've been doing these shows, and the first one we did was a profile of Jack Dempsey, and maybe we'll make it a yearly event. I think he's certainly somebody that's worth remembering, and that's what I would like to stress to your younger viewers, that boxing is what it is because of its history. The interest, the titles mean what they do, because of what's gone before us. And I think that Jack Dempsey certainly Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, Gene Tunney. I really enjoyed the profiles we did this past year. With Floyd Patterson and the Jewish boxers. I thought that was a very good one. The Philadelphia fighters, Philadelphia middleweights. I really enjoyed that, and so I very much enjoy putting these things together, and I hope that I'm helping viewers, listeners, and maybe perhaps enjoy the fights a little more by knowing, what has gone on before the present day. I enjoyed recapping the past year with you as well. And so I think that's a big thing about boxing. Boxing and baseball, I think more than, we'll say sports, their history really, is a huge part of the tale. And I know that it increases my enjoyment of the fights knowing what's going on before. So, I'll hopefully in the future, in this coming year, we'll profile a lot of other good guys from the past.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And, we want to thank you for being a part of this journey called life and boxing. But, Henry Hascop and Tony Treem and Bob Murray, this show, that World Boxing Review show, has been going on for 26 years.
yeah,
Henry Hascop, who's president of the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame, who was president of Ring 8. We did for every Saturday for many, many years the history of boxing, and to have you come and sit now to keep it ongoing. It's a endless task that we all must do. And Tony Treem, who was with the National Boxing Hall of Fame and started the world Boxing Hall of Fame and some others. Tony Treem used to sit also on the show and bound it out each and
Yeah.
every year. So, the fans are used to hearing that kind of history and research and stuff that it takes time to do to make sure that we try to get the best out there over the airways so people have some type of insight and knowledge. And
Well, I
for
really
those
try to.
who had tuned in, Mark Irwin is the vice president of the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame. He was president, and also of the Rochester and Buffalo vice president. So just to fill in the listening audience. But man, it's been a wonderful morning, Mark.
Yes.
And we want to
Yes.
thank you again for a joyous year.
Yes.
As we travel the world for past, present, and future stars in the game of boxing. And we can't wait to 2026 to bring something new and exciting. And we did um, live things from different events, like the John L. Sullivan Bare Knuckle
Yes.
award that we did with you and Larry. We did those things live so people could see the John L. Sullivan belt and the Bare Knuckles Hall of Fame. We did that this year. We covered live the Rochester Boxing Hall of Fame. Well, we
They
did
covered
that.
very
We
well.
covered
Yeah.
that live, and
Yep.
some ongoing other events that we did. But we want to thank you, Mark, for all that you do for boxing. And all I'm saying, 2026, we're happy to have you and continue to do these profiles.
Well, it's great to be here, and I thank you for having me. And I've enjoyed it very much, and very much looking forward to the future as well. And I just again, you said one thing. I think Jack Dempsey is worth remembering. If it's worth taking the time to look into him a little bit. There's some clips on YouTube and whatnot. He's he's certainly worth knowing about. So as is the history of boxing, all worth knowing about. So thank you.
Oh,
Thank
absolutely.
you, Aaron.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. We want to thank the fans for tuning in to the World Boxing Review radio show as we travel the world for past, present, and future stars.